Because I said lock it in, Ashleigh, and you went lock it in, David. I just got that.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Remind podcast. I'm Dr. Ashleigh Morland and I am joined by my co-host, David Masterton. Hopefully you enjoyed our series on the Universal Laws podcast. If you didn't get to catch it, go back and have a listen to those episodes because the feedback that we had was phenomenal. So this episode is going to be equally as interesting. This is because I have been working through the creation of all of our guided healing journeys, and I was so triggered by my own course, which was on burnout and moral injury. And it was because I recorded these courses before I had a major life event happen. Actually, a series of major life events. David and I have both been in this pretty crazy season recently.
Tis a season.
It is a season. And I want to call this episode Productivity Has Become a Religion and You Are Its Sacrifice. So
do we need to put a trigger warning here for those who are religious?
Yes, possibly. But what we're really going to be talking about is those of you who only feel worthy when you're achieving. It's time to start asking who taught you that. And the reason this came up for me is because over a period of a few weeks, I had so many things go down that I spent time. We had full days at the hospital. We had like various things that I got almost no work done in a season where I was feeling pretty time pressured and had deadlines. And I found myself feeling really frustrated and snappy and stressed. And it really encouraged me to sit with this, the exact content that I was teaching into.
Stop talking about it. Now it's time to embody it.
Feeling productive and feeling worthy when you're achieving. So that's what I wanted to chat about today. And I want to talk about the cult of productivity because that's really what it's become. It's like the quiet addiction to achievement as a measure of your worth. And the thing for me is our nervous system is not designed to be performing or to be on 24/7, but it certainly has felt like I fell into that trap for a little while where I was not productive, but then in my time when I should have been resting or sleeping, I still was dysregulated because I was thinking about not being productive. So let's go there.
100%.
Where did we learn this?
Well, okay. I'm going to flip it on its head.
Okay.
Show me an example where rest and not doing anything is celebrated. Right? And
when you're sick or injured?
No, but you're recovering then.
I know.
Right?
But that's where we learn that it's okay to be sick or injured and rest, but it's not okay to rest proactively.
No, just imagine everything's fine, right? And someone just sort of decides to take a week off. Not because there's anything wrong. It's our society. And again, I've said this many times in many different episodes. Masculine versus feminine energies, right? Not genders, energies. The masculine energy is the go, get, drive, strategy, all of that. The feminine energy is the spiritual, or highly more spiritual, connected, receptive, attractive, like they attract and receive and all of this, as opposed to go and get. Our society has absolutely celebrated masculine energy. And so it's all been, if you want to go get something, like back in the 90s and the 2000s, early 2000s, all of these like self-help stuff was all masculine driven. You can go and get it. You just need to push through. You can just, I'll give you the tools.
Walk on fire and...
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
It's like, imagine, but then, and I guarantee, and I'm talking about like a pretty hard stereotype, right? I guarantee there were people back then talking about the opposite, but it did not get the same traction as mainstream. So here, what I'm saying is, I'm talking mainstream. Imagine, and this is all coming up now, we're just talking about it. It's like, imagine the most productive thing you can do is heal yourself. And how do you do that? Well, you don't heal yourself by running 1,000 miles an hour, hoping that nothing catches up with you. It's the stop. It's the inner reflection. It's being able to sit with yourself. Like when I first met you and we were doing stuff together and you'd say, put your hand on your heart and then close your eyes and take a deep breath. It wasn't our first meeting, right? But it was like over time as you were telling me, do you know how awkward it was for me to just do that one thing? I did it, but the awkwardness around it was sort of like, what are you doing? We're here to get stuff done. What do you mean? Put your hand on your heart, close your eyes and take a deep breath. I haven't got time for that.
Yeah.
So it's been, and by the way, now, hand on heart, close eyes.
Yes.
I now say it to other people, like...
And this is the thing, right? Like, it's conditioning and it's environmental. So I always think about the good kids thing. And I think we've got an entire episode. It would be an early episode on Were You a Good Kid? And ultimately, I look at this everywhere we go. We've got childhood praise for overfunctioning. A kid is a good kid when they're helpful, when they're quiet, when they're busy, when they're productive. Schools reward output. They don't reward presence. Workplaces glorify burnout like it's some kind of badge of honor. And so it's reinforced in almost every environment that we go to that overfunctioning and pushing is what makes us better, like good, worthy, better. And I think that we gotta break that. We gotta prioritize presence over output. We have to prioritize connection over productivity.
Well, I guess if we look at schools, right, and you look at what makes a good student, and I certainly wasn't one of them. So I'm looking at it as what I was told is the version of a good student. And a lot of it came down to the fact that you don't make waves and it's difficult in the current institution. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that teachers are doing the wrong thing, anything like that. It's the fact that when you've got, say, 30 plus kids in a room, maybe one, maybe two teachers in there, and you've got one kid acting out, hello, that was me, then the whole class is disrupted. And so what really helps the learning, especially when I went through to school, and I believe it's slowly changing at the moment, it's more about comprehension, memorization, and being able to repeat it.
Yeah, regurgitation.
Yeah. And so to be able to get into that mindset, you need to have people still and concentrating. Okay. To be able to do that, you need the 30 plus kids to be able to not interfere with each other. So outside of the play side, it's being able to come back to, and look, my son's absolutely like this. If he hasn't taken Ritalin, he's a menace at school. And when I say menace, it's not like he's terrible, but his free thinking, not being able to sit, he will really go with his gut feeling, is this relevant for me? And if he doesn't feel as though it's relevant, his mind's going everywhere. Hypersensitive on anyone that's doing anything that might be of an injustice and things like that. So for him to be a good student, he needs to be compliant with the rules. Okay? So even if you're not learning, that's a concern. But if you're compliant, that helps. So, and I've even said to him during his schooling is important because you're going to have to do a couple of things. You're going to have to get acclimatized with how to cooperate with people and interact with people and learn how to grow socially. You are going to need to learn language and some basic maths. Outside of that, when he's our age, what's AI going to be doing? Pretty much most of the mental heavy lifting, which is not a bad thing. It's just an evolution. So we need to go further. So I've said to him, there are things that I'm going to teach you on how to be compliant at school that I'm going to have to help you to unlearn when you leave school, because you need to really embrace your free spirit, your free thinking, your own ability to express yourself, which unfortunately, for the most part, at school at the moment, that's not compliance.
I think you've raised a really good point, because my next question to you was going to be, well, what does this cost us? And it costs us our sense of self. Because if we are being judged on roles, results, compliance, then we have to conform. And in order to conform, we have to shapeshift out of who we really are to become who the system needs us to be. And therefore, we become compliant and good. And I think that is that's the biggest risk. So that productivity, that driving force where, yeah, it's absolutely wild. It all comes down to sense of self. And then I love what you said about, I'm going to help you to learn the things you need to learn to be compliant, to meet the requirements, but then I'm going to have to help you unlearn.
Break it all. Yeah.
I think, because what's the risk if we don't? The risk is long-term health issues, because we've been in a survival state for so long. It's identity confusion. It's like chronic stress, chronic tension, relationship issues, because our nervous system becomes so conditioned to only feeling safe when we're busy or when we're performing, that we never actually just get to be. We never actually just get to authentically just show up as who we are, because it's always a performance. We have guilt when we're still. We have shame if we're slow, or if we're I think you said before, like expressing your true self, and stillness becomes threatening. We've done a number of episodes on rest versus, what was it? Recovery? Rest versus relaxation.
That's it. Yes.
Go back and check out that episode. But your nervous system learns to see survival in the hustle. And so if you're not hustling and you're not seeing the product of that hustle, then it feels unsafe. And I think that's the key. Is it's easier when you're seeing lots of output, lots of outcome for your hustle. But when that outcome isn't there and you've got nothing to show for it, then how does it feel?
And look, I'll come back to school, okay? Not because I'm wanting to have a go at teachers. I think school is vitally important. What's being taught, I'm challenging, and but look at what it means to be a successful student. It's all output driven, and it's sort of like that used to work very well when it was people went to school so that you could create factory workers. It had its place. It needed to be there. However, the evolution's moving on. So that's probably why it sort of starts off. And then you've got the pressure as parents to sort of go, well, I work 9 to 5, so I need you at school. And you know what I also don't need? I don't need your teachers judging me on the basis that you're not a good student. So now, as a kid, you're there sort of going, well, I'm drawn to this expression or freedom or whatever it is, which may be very different. It's like, hello, I'm talking about my sort of childhood experience versus what I need to do. And it's not just from a school point of view, but it's also my parents as well, because the system at that point in time was sort of like, well, parents need to work and again, be productive. I then have to go to school. And how do I produce? Well, if I'm not producing, what happens? There's discussions. There's things where the teacher's saying, David, you're a very good boy. Sometimes you have the potential of doing so much. You just need to ... Then you go home after parent-teacher and the parents are going, David, you're very creative and you can do whatever you want, but you just need to ... Where internally, all I want to do is be me, whatever that is. So then suddenly it sort of comes into, well, for me to be a good person, for me to please all the people around me, especially the authoritative figures, teachers and all of that generally do want the best for me based on their perception of the world, I need to shelve this because, especially for me, it was, I was a hunter in a farmer's world.
Yeah,
right?
You said a word that really triggered me.
Oh,
I really noticed the response in my body, and it was potential.
okay. Let's
It's like,
unpack that.
yes. And I feel like that could be tied into this whole productivity thing, because you've got to live up to your potential. And if you're not at your potential, if you're not expressing your potential, if you're anything other than the fullness of your potential, then you're failing and you have to chase it. Like you're all like, what even is potential? It's BS.
Well, let's put it this
just be
way.
your best. Just be your best at any given
And that raises a
time.
very good point, because my niece said it beautifully. And I'll come back to it. But potential is based on the perception of someone projecting onto you. Now, a lot of the time when we say projecting onto you, we see it as a negative thing, but it's not necessarily a negative thing. Could
No,
be a
it can
positive
be
thing.
uplifting. It can be
Yes,
inspiring. It
it
can
is
call you
simply a
forward.
thing,
Yeah.
right? However, it's their projection of you. And so when we're based on this conditioning as a kid, which sort of says, if you want to do that and you're very good at it, you're going to get a heap of praise. So it's going to set it in. You don't need to do anything else. However, all of those things that you learn as a kid, really, like you could imagine if all you wanted to do is go to school and be an academic. Great. You're quiet, you're compliant, you did all of that, and you felt great. Okay, so how would that translate into someone as an adult? Well, in their career, everything would be Gucci. Outside of that, potentially struggle street. So then we have this thing of how do we balance that out? But imagine that's not what you are. And you want to be creative. You want to be innovative. You want to be an entrepreneur. You want to move fast and break things. Hello, David. And then you get put into this system where you have to almost sort of go, well, you're wrong. Even though they're not saying it, and even though they don't want you to be, their potential is you could do so much so long as you just get rid of your instincts. If you just control your brain a bit more, if you just settle down, if you just focus, if you just put your attention on this and not that. But again, my potential could be, with everything that's going on, much bigger than the potential they're talking about. I could eclipse that potential. But it's based on their understanding and their programming. And coming back to what you sort of said about, just do your best, right? And this is what came to me from my niece. I said to her, look, it doesn't matter what the result is, just try your best. And she was taken back. I don't feel as though it landed. And I said to her, Are you okay? Are you hearing this? And she looked at me and says, what if my best is not good enough? And I said to her, well, you raise a perfectly good point. So valid. Because when I say all I need you to do is to do your best, there's no metric. I'm not judging you based on what the outcome is or how I feel about it, right? I just want you to do your best. Now, it seems to me, because of her reaction, it's people have said, all I need you to do is do your best. And they say it from an encouraging and motivational standpoint. However, it comes with conditions. I believe your best equals this outcome, this metric, this ability
it's subjective.
Right. So, and it's sort of like, actually, what they mean is, I don't care so long as you meet this point, but I don't want to say that because I want to be encouraging, right? However, it's been weaponized. So now the words that are said does not meet the intention of what the actual outcome is, which then brings me from, let's stop talking about school and let's start talking about the workplace, right? Because if someone at work said, I don't care what happens, just do your best. Okay, especially in large corporations where there's many people working and things like that, there has to be metrics, right? That's why we have position descriptions. Yes, it's to help the employee to know exactly what I'm doing, so it stops their boss from changing it every given Tuesday. But there has to be metrics now, because now we have to have a judge if person A and person B have a disagreement, right? I need to know your productivity based on these outputs. Imagine going into a, what do we call it, a performance review, and the performance only was based on how your boss felt on the day about you. How cool would that be?
Yeah, there's a time and place. There has to be, I call them guardrails. It's literally just playing 10-pin bowling with the rails up. That's it.
So,
but there's context around them. And I think that's the most important thing, is to understand that context.
Absolutely. Now, I'm not saying all of these things are bad, but we're coming back to, if productivity was a religion, right, are you the sacrifice? Well, you're born as the sacrifice at this point in time, and it's changing. Imagine, and let's come back to a spiritual sense in all of this on a positive side, or religious point on a positive side. What if you were here to fulfill your purpose? And as part of that is to get to understand what your purpose is and do that.
What if your purpose is to learn that you don't need to be productive to be loved?
Well, that's going to be well. But here's the thing: we had to learn the opposite to find the other end. Like when we were born, we weren't born with, unless we want to talk about generational trauma and ancestral trauma that sort of come through. Yes, there is part of it, but generally a kid doesn't come into this world going with not born with a checklist in its hand. I need to do this.
Yeah.
It's learned behaviors. And I think that's sort of part of it. We have to learn some of these things so we can unlearn it in a environment where we don't remember truly at our essence who we are, because that's leveling up.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if we start to land this plane, like thinking about, well, how do we rewrite that script? Like, how do we actually rebuild our sense of self? And ultimately, this is what I see in burnout, right? So people who drive themselves into the ground because they assign their worth to their productivity, that leads to burnout.
Yes.
And so what's the antidote to that? Well, we've got to start to really understand what our definitions are of these things. Where did we learn that productivity was so important? And, we've got, if for business owners specifically, we've got a short course that's the top 3 beliefs holding business owners back. One of them is hustle culture. It's only $149 US. It's got all the processing in there to unpack that. But one of those is hustle culture. It's very, very interesting, because in that lesson, we go into detail about where that hustle culture was born from. But the product of hustle culture is burnout. And that's where we've got a whole entire learning journey and healing journey. And I literally just said to my husband last night, because I was sitting there reflecting on all of these things that we've created. And I said to him, I actually want to go through and do all of these myself. Like, we should do them together, because the journey that it takes you on into that self-awareness and self-revelation, and the impact on the other side of actually changing the narrative and living differently, embodying the changes and living differently, I think is really, really valuable. It's we always say you can't change your life without changing your life. So I would be thinking about, how do we switch out of that performance? I don't even want to say mindset. It's like a full-blown belief system. It's part of performance conditioning and identity. Yeah, exactly. Into one of presence, where we value presence and connection over performance and I guess masking or fulfilling the roles. And another thing that comes up for me, I have a feeling we spoke about this recently anyway, but the pit stop analogy. Did I talk about the race car recently?
No, because I would have remembered that.
Okay, so it's like in Lightning McQueen in Cars.
Ka-chow.
Yeah. How he goes around and around the racetrack, and he doesn't want to pull into the pits because he thinks that if he stops, that the pit's just a waste of time, and he doesn't want to lose time because he just wants to push and push and push and push and push and push because he wants to win. And why does he want to win? Well, because ego is coming in, and he thinks that in order to be important and in order to be seen and valued and loved, then he needs to win. And the learning for me in all of this is Lightning McQueen didn't win because his car broke down because he refused to take the necessary pit stop. And so, like what I said before, what's the conditions where rest is allowed, where we celebrate rest? It's if we're sick or injured. So if we don't take the pit stop proactively to rest and to actually honor ourselves with presence and connection, then the only way that we can validly get that is through sickness or injury, which is the equivalent of Lightning McQueen's car breaking down.
But it also means that pit stop could take a lot longer.
Well, potentially, but if we
can take you out of the race.
Do it reactively, 100% it can take you out of the race. And this is the thing with burnout. Like, burnout has been career ending for people. Like, it's serious. And if we actually don't, I guess, sit with this and really be proactive in preventing it, then we're in for a hell of a ride to try and overcome it.
Well, the need to satisfy that condition will envelop your whole life.
Yes.
Now, I know we do need to land the plane, but the analogy that came to me a couple of weeks ago is, imagine a pilot who loves flying so much he'll never land, or she, right? Imagine that.
Yes, I love that.
Flying so much, I never want to land.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? You have to land at some point.
Yes.
Either you're going to do it or the thing's going to glide, because guess what? You're out of fuel.
Yes, that's a great analogy. I love that.
Some avionic people will sort of say, well, you can have mid-air fueling. Well, okay, fine. Yeah, gotcha. However, assume commercial planes.
Try and justify your way out of it. See what happens.
Now, just to finish this off, and maybe we could pull this into the next episode, is I did not, I want to say fix, but that's not the right word. I did not acknowledge what I needed to do to get out of this by working on this thing directly. So maybe the next one is, what's some of the things that we should be doing to look at it? Because number one, it's not your fault. Number two, it's not your parents' fault. Number three, it's not society's fault.
Stop trying to blame. There's no blame. No blame, just observation.
Number four, it's nobody's fault, right?
No.
But
we could have just had a number one there.
what we need to do is to sort of go, okay, now that I'm here, again, as Ash said, observation, I'm here. How do I get out of here? And then you work on it from there, but it's not a direct door you can tap on. I've found a lot of my healing, I've had to go in different directions to heal different things that then unlock other doors down the hall. It feels really bizarre, especially for my logical mind, but it's exactly how it's happened. So maybe we can do it in the next episode. What do you reckon? Maybe. Did you want to wrap us up with anything else? Maybe with a ka-chow or I am speed?
It's great to have you with us, guys. Make sure, if you haven't already, click that subscribe button. We're going to come back next week with an episode, maybe following up on this, or maybe it'll be completely random. Who knows? Because we're here to express authentically rather than I don't know.
Well, I suppose we need to be productive because we need to get this show out. So, yes. I mean, here we are sort of, preaching.
And if you do want to know more information about the guided healing journeys, guys, just check the episode description and you'll be able to see exactly the steps to take, and it'll be an honor to be your tour guide.
Show notes. Bye-bye.
Bye.